Regional Head of Policy for the Manasa region of ACCA. So we'll just like to start off. We're extremely excited today being here, myself and the Head of Member Affairs, Harun Ahmed Jan, who has and it is officially our first CPD event ever in the Peshawar region. So that deserves a huge round of applause for all of us. What we have also started doing is that very recently, roughly about a month back, again, some crazy people who work at ACC in the background were just wondering, कि यार कुछ different करना चाहिए, थोड़ी सी advancement लेके आनी चाहिए. So we came up with this crazy idea that we are going to now start off. All our events should be essentially available as webinars where we can have live attendance and there could be knowledge sharing across barriers. So right now this particular event is also being broadcasted live online. We have a lot of attendees who have also joined us from different places. We will be taking questions and Peshawar is on the radar. So make sure that all of our experiences of Peshawaris being very hospitable people. I know that for a fact that you are very hospitable indeed. We also take back that same message to the ones who are also joining us online. With that, since we are going to discuss a lot about the smart finance function and digital Darwanism, there are a couple of hashtags for people who are very tech savvy. So we are going to also broadcast this event on Twitter. So the hashtags are right there in front of your tables. That's ACCA Tech, hashtag smart finance, hashtag digital Darwinism. Feel free, there's an internet connection in this room. Feel free to, hashtag and tweet about whatever your learnings are from today's session. What we also want to achieve from today's session was that me and Harun Saab, we actually have quite a lot of trouble when we are supposed to profile members, and we're looking for members across Pakistan who we can actually include in a lot of our publications, in a lot of our social media promotions, in a lot of our brochures. So feel free to grab hold of us and send us your profile so that we can also have representation coming from this particular region. Every time that I happen to come to Peshawar, it has rained here. So today I was, crossing my fingers and hoping that it doesn't rain this time around and we get a longer time frame to discuss and talk to each other. There was one of the speakers that was actually supposed to fly in from Karachi, a senior member, CFO and company secretary at Tamil Microfinance. Unfortunately, only this morning he had a death in his family, so he unfortunately couldn't make it. But Arif Saab has a very fun-filled agenda for you towards the later end of the evening. But I'll start off with Harun Jan, who's going to come in and tell you about your CPD requirements. Today is also a CPD event, a similar CPD event. So he is going to tell you all about the CPD requirements that ACCA members have and where is the larger part of his work dedicated. So please join me in welcoming Harun Jan.
Thank you very much, Nurulain. I must say that this trip to Peshawar has been very happening from the word go. 5 o'clock in the morning, I received a call from our worthy national carrier that, Mr. John, your flight has been cancelled. Good luck. I said, are you sure? Are you putting me in another flight? I said, yes, there's another flight available at 11:15. Would you want to take that? And I said, yes, of course, I'm dying to meet my members in Peshawar. This is my first time after about 7 years. They said, fine, we put you on that flight. And we got to the airport. It wasn't surprising that the flight got delayed by just an hour, right? So that was the second one. The third one was that when we finally reached here, just around the corner, there was a huge demonstration procession going on, blocking our way. You can't go to Pearl Continental, you'll have to stay here. and then we had to go take a long detour to get here. But I can tell you, there's a lot of commitment and dedication and a desire to be with you today that brought us here. I must say that I'm extremely excited to be within my members based in Peshawar. I've been in constant contact with a lot of members. A lot of members do write to me, talk to me. Emma here spoke with me. There was a young gentleman, sir, I'm sorry, I forgot. Khalilullah Saab, yes? Is that your name? I'm sorry, you missed the name. Khwaja Saab, Khwaja Latif Saab. He's very active on our social media, and he in fact took all the trouble to go to Lahore to attend the annual member network meeting. So thank you very much, sir. I'm just going to take a little bit of your time and tell you about the Member Affairs Department and what do we do, what kind of services will you get from this department, and then a little bit about CPD and what is this CPD requirement. So, gentlemen, almost about a year back we decided that the number of members in Pakistan has reached a stage where we need to have a dedicated department to serve the needs of our members. So with this philosophy and idea, this department came into me. The first three priorities that we set for our department was, number one, employment and employability for our members, top of the priority. And by the way, there's a difference between employment and employability. Well, employment means signposting you, showing you where the jobs are. And you've probably started receiving my reports on a weekly basis, a finance job insight. So that was one step, not just, that's not all, that was just the first step to talk about employment support. But employability is a little different. All that you need to go and get a job is employability. Those soft skills, those resume writing skills, etc., etc. So we're working on both these dimensions. Number two was enough CPD opportunities. And we realized that our members need a diverse portfolio of a CPD calendar, and therefore there need to be enough opportunities for them to continue their grooming and their development. And this year, there is a list of about 120 CPD events that we're going to conduct across Pakistan in various cities. And these CPD events are going to be very, very diverse in nature. They're going to be very, very technical, taxation related, IFRS related, accounting standard related trainings. But at the same time, they're going to be IT related trainings. They're going to be Oracle related trainings, project management, etc. Then soft skills. Then the developments in the accounting profession. So all these are going to be available to you as CPD events spread all over the year. Like Nurul said, most of these events are also going to be broadcasted live, just like we are doing now. Okay? So if the event is not happening in Peshawar, it doesn't mean that you don't have an opportunity. It still means that you can sit in your offices, at your homes, at your workplaces, and attend these sessions. And you get the same credit as a member who's attending this session face-to-face. Okay? So for example, there are about 83 people who signed up for this particular session online. They're also going to get 2 hours or 2 units of CPD as a result of this session. Same as you guys. And number three, gentlemen, the third priority was some affinity arrangements with various renowned brands. So what we've done so far is that we had a deal with the Royal Palm Golf and Country Club, which is based in Lahore, and they gave a 50% discount to ACCA members if they were to get the membership of that club. But then we thought this would be for Lahore alone. Why not, go beyond Lahore and see what we can do. So we spoke with, let's say, MCB Bank. And MCB Bank says, look, we can give you offers on 4 different products. We can give you a special offer on car financing. We said, fantastic. Will not stop here, right? We will continue to provide such services also to our members. But remember one thing, these 3 services have been mentioned to you in order of priority. The first one, employment and employability. Second one, CPD. And third one, these special offers. Let me not take too much of your time. I'll very quickly go through a quick presentation and remind you of what CPD requirements are. Right? I hope most of you people have submitted your CPD returns. Yes? And do you find any difficulty in understanding the way returns are to be submitted? No? Is it easy? But there are certain myths around CPDs and we're just going to correct them. Nurulain, can we have the session live back on? Okay. All right. Continuing professional development. Why is it important? It is important because as professional accountants, you are in a way responsible and answerable to the public expectations. Right? And to be able to meet those expectations, you need to have your professional development or your knowledge level up to a mark. Right? For that, professional development is an essential. Employer focus on development. Employers would not want to hire people who have antiquated knowledge. Right? So they want their employees to have up-to-date knowledge of things. Therefore, CPD is important. Increasing regulation. You must have noticed that even within Pakistan, compliance issues or regulation issues are on the rise. Accountants are being burdened with reports, one way or the other, reporting to this, reporting to one regulator, reporting to another regulator. So that is going to probably continue. And therefore, there is increasing emphasis on CPD. And of course, there are personal benefits. Now, ACCA doesn't do its CPD requirements in isolation. What ACCA did was that it went around the world, spoke to members, what are your CPD requirements? Then it spoke to employers also. What do you think our members should have in order to be effective professional accountants? And this year alone, ACCA has decided that probably 1 survey in a year is not enough. There will be 3 surveys on CPDs every year to get more insight from you what your CPD requirements are. Of course, we have a huge spread across the world, and the CPD requirements could vary from one country to the other. So it's important that members have their say in the CPD policy of ACCA. So I'll encourage you to participate in these surveys and have your say. There is another important survey that I keep mentioning to people, and that is the member satisfaction survey. Right? Please do make sure that you participate in that survey, because ACCA gets a lot of insight through these surveys. And it's important that members who want to say something, they say something through those surveys. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 routes to CPD, as you might know. The unit route for part-time and semi-retired individuals, the approved employer route, and other IFAC body route. Okay. Now you may just be aware of the first one, which is the unit route. You have to complete 40 units of CPD every year, 21 verifiable, 19 non-verifiable. The difference is you have to give an evidence of verifiable CPD in the form of a certificate, in the form of meeting minutes, etc. But non-verifiable could be reading an article out of the newspaper. But there there are other CPD routes also, as this suggests. And those are, for example, the approved employer route. So if you're working for a CPD approved employer, all you have to do at the end of the year is mention to ACCA that you are working for such and such employer, which is CPD approved. And you don't have to give any further details of what CPD events you attended. And that's because ACCA would have sorted that out with that employer. Now, if you're working at an organization where the employer invests in your professional development, it's time that you contact us and we talk to your organization and make them an ACCA CPD approved employer. Okay? Now, another one which is very important, another route that's important is other IFAC body route. So if you're a member of two bodies and ACCA encourages members to be a part of the local accounting bodies also, right? So if you're a member of multiple bodies and those bodies are a member of IFAC, meeting the requirement of any one of those accounting bodies, you can meet the requirement of all others. So if, let's suppose, you are an ICMAP member, right, which is a member of IFAC, and you are an ACCA member also, again, which is a founder member of IFAC, if you complete ICMAP's CPD requirement, ACCA's requirements are also ticked off. If you complete ACCA's requirements, ICMAP's requirements should also be ticked off because they are also member of IFAC. Which is what I've just explained. Only a member of ACCA, very simple. Follow one of those four routes. If you're a member of another body also, and following their CPD, right, ACCA's CPD requirements are met. A member of two bodies but following ACCA's CPD, the requirements of the other CPD, other accounting body, will also be met. Now, for any CPD event, you have to ask yourself these three questions. The first one, is this learning activity relevant to your role? If it is, if the answer to this is yes, it is CPD. Can you explain how you will apply the learning in the workplace? If it is, the answer to this is yes, again, this is a CPD activity for you. And third is there evidence available that learning took place? If yes, then it is verifiable CPD. Okay? So please remember three questions. It should be relevant, it should be related to your role, and it should be verifiable. Now, this is one myth, and that is we don't get enough CPD opportunities. ACCA's CPD policy is very different and flexible. You don't have to be attending such events always for your CPD requirements, right? You may gain CPDs in many other ways. As long as there is something for you to learn, there is some career development for you, it will count as CPD for you. So, for example, you are in your office and your office arranges a session for you, okay, on let's suppose a business planning meeting. Would you believe that even that is verifiable CPD for you? If there is an ACCA trainee working under your supervision, right, you take time out of your work to mentor that trainee, even that is verifiable CPD for you. You're starting a new role in your organization. I started a new role 8 months back. I was given an induction. I was given a training. That training, that induction is CPD for you, verifiable CPD. So within your office, while doing your work, there are many opportunities through which you can gain CPDs. If you read the Accounting and Business magazine, how many of you get the AB magazine? A few people? Do you know that there are articles in there with some questions? Have you ever explored those? There are certain articles which have a set of questions with them. You answer those questions and submit them, even that is verifiable CPD for you. Okay, those who are not getting AB, please get in touch with the local office and we make sure that you are, okay, all right, and make sure, and that AB is present, copies available right here as well. I'll be very, very quick. If you don't work in an accountancy role, then whatever role you work in, or you are a leader in a new role, or you're involved in a new project, all the learning that you do counts as CPD. Now, have all of you seen this page? If all of you are submitting your CPDs, right, and all of you are sort of trying to find out what CPD events are available, this My Development section of your My ACCA account sort of directs you to what CPD activities are taking place. So there are articles in there. There are CPD articles with MCQs, I've told you about them. There are online courses. There are local face-to-face events just like this one. There are webinars, and there are qualifications from our partners. These two screenshots from your CPD returns actually of what you're required to submit. I'm sure if you're already doing it, this could be very, very easy. But if you have any questions, I will be around after the session and you can always come and ask me about these evidences. Please remember that your CPD declarations are due on 1st of January every year. It's not just 2014, it's every year 1st of January. If you still have any questions, like I said, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions over the refreshments. That's all I have to say. And I'll now hand it back to Nurulain, who will introduce the topic and call RF. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harun sir. I was just very interestingly going through some of the comments that attendees online have been telling us, so there are a lot of questions that we'll be taking towards the end. There are a couple of representatives who have joined us from Dubai. I just thought I'll let you know who have joined us for the webinar from Dubai. So that's very interesting. The topic for today is actually a part of our larger research and insight themes that's classified under the Smart Finance function. What ACCA does every year is that we have a calendar that's very aggressively built up with all the researches that ACCA is going to conduct. Every year there are around 30 odd researches that come out on different topics which are related to risk, taxation, the Smart Finance function, topics that are even on the wider reporting framework like sustainability, environment, public sector, etc. This particular topic we picked up because it was very interesting for us to see how the technology is going to change the way businesses are going to operate. So having said that, over to Arif Masood Mirza, who is our next speaker for today, who will be taking you through the particular session.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to all the ACCA members here today, and a very good evening. Also welcome to all the non-members as well. If those are here from ICAP or ICMA or MBAs, you're more than welcome. Now, my topic for this evening is called Digital Darwinism. So I chose that picture. It represents a young man sitting on top of I don't know what you call in Pashto, a baz or a buffalo, but there he is, you know, having a great time sitting on top of his buffalo, but he's also working on his smartphone. So that gives you an indication of how technology is impacting our lives. Now, Darwinism. How many here have heard of this scientist by the name of Darwin? Put your hand up if you heard of Darwin. Right? Now, accountants, Johanna, they're very shy people. Accountants will either put their arm this much up, right, or this much. Accountants will never go like this. Right? So hands up if you heard of Darwin. Right? So that's about 50% of the audience. So that means those of you who've heard of Darwin, you've probably done biology, you know, at college, or you've done your intermediate or an A-level biology. So you've heard of Darwin. For those who haven't heard of Darwin, in the 1800s, he was a botanist, an explorer, who took a ship to South America. Right? I think it was called the Beagle. It was on the Beagle. So he went on this ship. It was a sailing ship, and after many months, he arrived on a group of islands off the coast of South America, off the coast of Ecuador, I think it was. Right? And there he discovered new species of birds. He discovered new species of tortoise. He discovered new species of lizards, iguana. Right? And why were they new? He started asking himself, why is this tortoise that I've discovered on the Galapagos Islands like 10 times larger than the tortoise on the mainland? Right? Why is this bird that I've discovered on this volcanic island in the Galapagos, why is the bird using a twig to catch a worm when on the island, when on the mainland the bird doesn't use a stick? Right? Why is the iguana, the lizard, on this island eating seaweed when the lizards on the mainland are not eating? So he discovered these new species, or if you like, you've all seen the movie X-Men? Hands up if you've seen the movie X-Men? Right? That's almost 90%. So the X-Men are mutations, yes? They have some special power because of things that have happened in their lives. Yep. So Darwin discovered that these animals on the island had different attributes, different characteristics, because they had adapted to the island. Right? The tortoise was 10 times bigger because there was no predator on the island. Yep. So the tortoise probably came on a piece of wood from the mainland to the island. When they reached the island after many generations, because there were no predators on the island, the species of tortoise kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Right? The iguana, because now they were feeding on a different diet, they evolved, they changed over time. So you can see from that picture that consumers, that young man is adapting to changes in technology. Yeah? That is the significance of the term Darwinism that we're applying to technological changes, in changing our own behaviors, in changing the way we work, in changing the way we live our lives, in changing the way we buy and sell goods to each other. Yeah? So all these are having a profound effect on our behaviors and our attributes and our capabilities. Yeah? Who would have said about 30 years ago that each one of you would carry a glass sort of covered instrument in your pockets and you would flick your finger on that to browse through many things? They would have said you're mad. Yeah? But when you saw, people in Star Trek all talking on little devices, all that has now become true. So the aim of this presentation is to get you to think about how technology is impacting the work that you do, whether you work in public practice, whether you work in a learning provider, whether you work in a hospital, whether you work in the public sector, the private sector, is to get you to think how technological advances are changing not only your working lives, but how you are bringing technology into the finance function, how you are helping leaders within your organization bring technology into the strategic planning. Work we do. We record money transactions, we make payments, we make journal entries, we post to the nominal ledger, but that is orthodox. A lot of that is automated. We have machines to do that now. Yeah? So what are you now supposed to be spending your time on? Surely you should be talking to the other people within your organizations. Surely you be talking to the marketing function. Surely you should be talking to the treasury function. Surely you should be talking to general management, the sales team, trying to understand what are they doing, and then trying to partner with them so that finance can actually add value to the overall business that you're operating in. And I will get you to think around that later on. And I'll also try and share our own technological experiences at ACCA, because I think in the last 18 years there have been huge transformations. Yeah? We know for a fact that examinations are becoming online, so in the future there will be no paper-based exams in the future. Yeah? You will all be doing online exams, certainly you not as members, but the new batch of students in the future will certainly be doing online exams. Yeah? There will be competition issues. A lot of the learning partners here will face competition from learning partners across the globe. Today, you can register for an online course in Harvard. If you can register for a free online course in Harvard University, why would you want to go to any other university? So they say technology is pervasive in your lives, so it's entering our lives, and it's going to take control of a lot of the things we do. So today is all about getting you to think as well, and I want to keep it interactive so that you can ask me questions and we can begin to answer some of those ourselves as well. So I'm going to take you gradually. It's a long presentation, and because Noor said earlier on, Kabir is not with us today because of, unfortunately, he had suffered a loss in his family. So my presentation will be extra long. Yep. So instead of 14 slides, I will now be presenting 37 slides. Yep. So have a drink of water, relax, be ready to ask me lots of questions. So what the discussion will present to you is the top 10 technological trends that we face today. So you may like to think of the top 10 pieces of technology that you use, and maybe it will match with some of those that I will present here today. And think about how these trends, these technological trends, are changing the accountancy profession. Yeah? When I was starting off in accountancy, the brand new thing at that time were calculators, which we all take for granted now, but back in 1983, calculators were brand new. Yep. So they just come onto the market. You could buy a scientific calculator, you could buy solar powered calculators, yep. You could buy logarithmic calculators. So they were very new at that time. We had no computers. Yep. So when I started off in 83, there were no computers. Then along came Lotus 123. Who's heard of Lotus 123? Yep. Some of you are probably as old as I am. Right? Right? Lotus 123 was the first spreadsheet before Microsoft Excel. Right? Anybody remember how you call the menu up?
Slash.
Yeah. Haroon's also decided to reveal his age. He's saying backslash. So you press backslash and then the menu appeared. And it was a regular sort of spreadsheet. And that was, you know, it was mind-boggling. We couldn't believe it because we used to do cash books and ledgers, which we had to cast down columns and columns of numbers, add them down, add them across, and check the balances. It was known as cross-casting. Yep. And if you got it wrong, there was some error in the ledger, in the cash book. But, you know, Lotus did away with all of that. You could then do cross-casting and ledgers within a few minutes. Yep. So that was the first sort of technological advance for accountants in those days. Before that, they used to have an accounting machine. I don't know whether they still have it in Peshawar. It was like a typewriter, so you'd enter the numbers, and there was this huge lever that you had to pull. And I tell you, there were exams in London in the 1970s of maybe 1,000 people in Alexander Hall. Each table used to have this huge machine on it for accountants. Yep. So that was, you know, just in the 70s. So there have been huge technological advances. So why should we think about technology? So there's no doubt that it's part of our lives. There's no doubt that it's penetrating, you know, and it's pervasive. So every walk of society we go in, we see technology. And we can see it in the banking industry especially, right? A lot of you probably have online bank accounts. You can go in, check your accounts, you can transfer money, etc. So it's banking industry is extremely now technologically advanced. Online payments, you can make payments to ACCA online, so that is having an impact. OLX, everybody's heard of OLX. You can buy and sell your old furniture, you can buy and sell your car, everything online. That is changing our behavior. Maps, if you want to get anywhere, you can look at your map, on your online map, you can get somewhere. So there are lots of areas where it's now impacting our lives. So tomorrow's economy, there are economic growth chances as well. So think about how technology is adding economic growth. So a lot of economies of the West, the top companies are Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon. These are all businesses which are unorthodox as compared to 30, 40 years ago. Yep. Heavily dependent upon technology to drive their businesses and their revenue streams. So I want you to think about, well, whatever organization you work in, whether it be education, whether it be public practice, how can you start to build in technology into your strategic planning so that you can exploit revenue building chances from technology. Yep. So revenue streams are changing, they're coming online, everything's up for grab. The world of apps, there are thousands and thousands of apps now available free in order to make our lives easier. Consumer and business strategies, again, think about how your consumers are behaving. Yep. Those of you who work in hospitals, think about how your consumers are using technology by the time they arrive in your hospital, and how can you make their lives a lot easier, and also how can you simplify your business processes so that they're less costly. So don't just think about, often people think about innovation in terms of a new product, a new service. Also think, especially accountants, think about innovation as modifying a business process. Yep. Understand the end-to-end process, how a transaction starts, how it finishes, what is happening in between that line, and how can you modify it to add value, i.e. how can you reduce the cost and increase the revenues. just by looking at that one single process. Yep. And think about how that can add value to your organization. Often we're too concerned with cost elimination, fiscal responsibility. The job of an accountant is to reduce costs. Yep. The job of an accountant in internal audit is to catch the person who's wasting money. Yep. Have you heard of this expression, deep dive? It's often used nowadays. A deep dive often means that you need to sit down with a group of individuals to look at a particular process and go right down into the heart of it. Yep. Spend several meetings thinking about what the process is and how it can be modified. You can't do it on your own. So what are the top 10 technological trends? This particular graph tells us about, it's called a Gartner hype cycle. So along the, let me see if I can get this pointer. Yeah. So along the horizontal line is time. Yep. So that's time, so it could be 2000 right up to 2015. Yep. And this is expectations. So the y-axis or the vertical line is expectations. Yep. So what's that's telling us? That every technological advance goes through 5 different stages. It goes through a technological trigger, so when something new comes out, everybody gets really excited about it. Yep. And everybody thinks it's going to be fantastic and it's going to change your lives forever. And it goes up this expectations curve. So you can see that at the very top, you get a peak of inflated expectations. So suddenly everybody thinks this is the best thing since sliced bread. Right? And some of the things that are appearing on the top, for example, right at the top, have you heard of 3D printing? Yep. आजकल बड़ा इंटरनेट पे आ रहा है, टीवी पे आ रहा है, in 3D printing, you can print out 3-dimensional things. People in the design industry are using it, but everybody seems to think, you know, it's going to be fantastic. Yeah? If you've got kids, they probably want a 3D printer. I even saw somebody actually, you could print, somebody printed out a gun, a plastic gun. Yeah? So 3D printing is right at the top of that expectation curve. Because everybody thinks it's going to be fantastic. Yeah? But nobody yet has, you know, really been able to afford it. And then what are the practical uses for the accountancy profession? So then it goes through a trough of disillusionment. So gradually people become disillusioned. Yep. No, it's not really fulfilling any function. I don't really need it. It's too expensive. I won't be able to use it. So it goes through a period, and you can see there that there are things there. For example, there's a home health monitoring. So those of you in the health industry, there's something called an app, which is a home health monitoring thing, which again, you know, people are disillusioned with now. They still want to meet the doctor. They still want face-to-face treatment. They want that. They're disillusioned with apps which are promoting home health. And then gradually, you get to the last phase, which is in terms of the plateau of productivity. So here, the technological advances are now cheaper, yep, they're more practical, and they make a difference in people's everyday lives, or they make a difference in people's business lives. And you can see there, you've got things like speech recognition. So programs like speech recognition are transforming industry. A lot of the speech recognition is being used by transcriptionists, It's also being used in hospitals. It's also being used in accounting firms. So you can, it just recognizes your voice. It does away with the whole concept of transcription. So the study revealed 10 technology trends. Okay? The number one, as you would expect, is mobile technology, yeah? Which is universal now. Billions and billions of individuals now using mobile technology. Pakistan last year got onto 3G. Yeah? The expectations are that the economy will quickly evolve and get onto faster broadband speeds and 4G and 5G. But mobile is the number one. Then there's big data, okay? And I will talk about big data later on. I think the single most important topic for accountants is big data. We've always been a profession that has relied upon data to produce analytics, to present to the leadership, present a report, present a financial model. Yep. But how are we changing that ability of ours to use not only the data that we always had, historical data, but data that we can access from other organizations? Yep. You can certainly, I'm not an expert, but you can certainly go onto Google and use a device called Google Analytics to derive a lot of data from that also. If you use Facebook and you have a business account, there's lots of data that you can derive on your customer behavior and your customer demographics and your customer attributes from Facebook. So those of you who are interacting with customers, if your company that you work for buys and sells products or you provide services, think about how you as a professional can tap into consumer behavior to provide analytics to improve your business value. It's not just about internal mining of data. Try and use metadata from another source to complement what you already have. Especially in terms of future business models, so future businesses. So Engro was a fertilizer company. Engro added on food, a dairy plant. Engro must have gone through some sort of business modeling to understand consumer behavior, to understand the future demand for milk in Pakistan, to understand the future demand for dairy products in Pakistan, and somehow they must have also used that data to complement their existing capabilities to see whether they could make a success of it or not. Yep. So those are the things that you guys need to be tapping into. Okay? So start thinking more creatively out of the box. Because remember that you as accountants, like I said at the beginning, please stop with the transactional sort of attributes that we have. Start thinking in terms of leadership. Start thinking in terms of how you can grow the organization in which you're in today. Yep. That's very important. If that's the only takeaway from this evening, fantastic. Anybody have a question at this stage? Because I want to keep it interactive. I want you to, be involved in this whole presentation. I promise I won't do 37 slides. I will shorten it down. So there's big data, artificial intelligence, robotics. So we know that, a lot of the car industry, for example, heavily relies upon robotics. Arun and I were talking earlier on that now surgery is also relying upon robotics. Yeah? You can have a surgeon sitting in California who can provide nanosurgery on patients sitting in Pakistan through the World Wide Web, through the internet. A lot of the operations now in Europe, especially prostate cancer surgery, is done through robotics. The surgeon does not even stand in the same operating table as the patient. The surgeon is outside controlling joysticks and performing the surgery. So there's a lot of robotics coming into it. And I think accountants, maybe accountants in the future, if automation is coming in to change your lives, if a lot of the data entry, the data processing is going to be done by machines, then think about what we are going to do as a profession. You know, we will have to think about value adding. As somebody, you know, looking at the books, going into the ledger, but now you can get people offline hacking into your systems. So you as custodians of the assets, custodians of all the ledgers, the computerized ledgers, have to think around risk and cyber security of your accounting systems. Yep. Educational technologies, that's changing. Those of you new members, you must have done the online professional ethics module. Those of you, some of you may have even done the online examinations as well. And certainly we have our friends here, Awais from PAC. Certainly e-learning is evolving and changing. And I know a lot of learning partners here are now beginning to take the steps to provide e-learning also. Payment systems, digital services, and social technologies. So let's talk about mobile first. Yeah. So, you know, it's basically mobile technology is all about now providing us with greater speed of processing, our ability to access lots of data on our, whether we're using tablets or whether we're using mobile devices. We can work more remotely from our clients. I don't have to be at a client, you know, I don't have to be in the office to do my client's work. I can be at home, I can be somewhere else. I can even be at my client's place of work and start beginning to do some of the work that I normally, in the old days, used to do purely in the office. Yeah. At ACCA, we do a lot of work on conference calls and also across different offices having group meetings. Again, whether we're traveling, we're able to do that online and using our devices. So you need to start thinking around, well, if I'm using my mobile purely for email services, right, and I imagine 100% of you are using your devices for workplace email services. Put your hand up if you use your mobile device for workplace email services. Yep. Right. Okay, that's surprising. That's probably less than half. The other half are now asleep. You know, so you know we do use email for us, and we use a lot of other things. So, for example, how many of you actually use your mobile devices to synchronize your meetings with your colleagues? Yeah. So how many of you are synchronizing your calendars? Yeah. So that's great, because that's a really important way of communications across the organization. Yeah. That's the best way to communicate across the organization, and you can attach files and things, and you can ensure that everybody turns up to a meeting, whether they're there face-to-face or whether they're there online. Have you heard of the expression, the Internet of Things, or the Internet of Everything? Yeah. This is a terminology that I came across during, when I was reading this. And it basically means that every single thing in the future, every device, every electronic device that we use, whether it's the fridge at home, whether it's our cars, are going to be eventually fitted with sensors and then be connected to the internet. So you can buy a fridge in London, you can buy a fridge that every time you open the freezer and you take frozen fish out, the freezer sends a signal to the shop that you are using fish. Yep. And so the shop, as a business, knows exactly what you're consuming. Yep. And by the end of the week, the shop knows how much fish is left in your freezer, and they can send you more fish. Yep. If you're using a car, the car is going to be fitted with sensors. Every time you drive your car, the insurance company can see your driving habits, whether you're driving fast, whether you're driving dangerously, yeah, whether you're avoiding risk, and they can adjust your premium because of your driving habits. So that means that in the future, every part of your life is going to be digitized, and there's going to be a business connection as well. So that is the Internet of Things. Probably when you entered this hall and you went online, Pearl Continental now has a footprint of you that you've entered here. Yeah? So they know that around 45 ACCA members have come into this hall. They have probably a signature of your personal digital device. They can probably get your email address, and then they can start sending you advertising. Yep. So that is how the B2C and the B2B customer experience is changing. What does that mean for accountants? Yep. What does that mean for you? Whether you're running a college, a public practice, a hospital, or working in, in energy sector, what does that mean to you, and why do you care? Yeah. You think, well, so what? Why, if it's happening, if a fridge or a freezer is becoming digitized, what difference does that make to me? Because that's about the innovation I talked about earlier on. Yeah. Because you can only add value and you can only grow as a professional if your organizations are growing, if your organizations are pushing out the frontiers of their own businesses. That is the only way you can grow within your organizations. Now, Haroon talked about we want to market members, make members more employable. Yep. I want to make you more employable within the organizations you're already in. I want you to grow the organizations you're already in by becoming really technological, advanced, strategic accountants. Yep. Start thinking innovatively. Yep. Okay. You've all heard the story of Apple. Yep. Apple started in a garage, right? In Steve Jobs' garage. Right? 2 people. Yep. And it grew into a $400 billion whatever. Right? Why? Because it was about human beings pushing the envelope of innovation. Yep. And he was a dropout from Stanford or wherever, yeah? So he was a dropout. You are professionals. You can push the envelope in your own organizations. Right? You can make your organizations better, more innovative, more valuable. They can value you so that you can become a future leader within those organizations. Okay? I'm drifting away from the subject, but that's an illustration of Docomo, which is a Japanese company, which is now really working on that Internet of Everything. So these cars in Tokyo just drive around all day, and you're connected all the time, even when you're driving in the public. So this is the 5G technology that Tokyo is in, which is providing them with speeds of 10 gigabytes per second, which is 1,000 times more faster than what we have today in Pakistan. How will this impact? Well, you can see there that the impacts that mobile computing will have in businesses. In South Asia, 67% of South Asians And that's basically Pakistani. So when we talk about South Asia, the largest single group of professionals, ACCA professionals, is in Pakistan. Yeah. So South Asia, that's around 3,000 members here in Pakistan, and roughly that amount in Dubai and the Middle East as well. So 67% of CFOs, professionals in South Asia, believe that mobile computing will have a big impact on their futures. And that's within the next 2 years. So, and this was, this presentation is from 2013. So by 2015, by the end of this year, they were saying that 78% thought that within 2 years, mobile technology will have a huge impact. And lo and behold, Pakistan went on to 3G last year. There's been about 3 times more people now using smartphones and 3G than there was before. What's important for us as a community? What is important for accountants as a community? So it's one, to identify and educate businesses on the costs and risks linked with mobile-driven trends, such as bring your own device. So a lot of businesses around the world are now talking to their staff to bring your own device. Yep. So companies can save on the hardware. They don't have to give you a BlackBerry. They don't have to give you a laptop. In the West now, they're saying to their staff, bring your own device. You want to use an Apple 5? Bring your Apple 5. Yep. You want to use your Samsung? Bring your Samsung to the workplace. Yep. You want to use an iPad? Bring it to the workplace. Yep. So there's a huge potential saving that businesses can make because their staff, as consumers of technology, already have their device. Yep. So why carry two? Why carry a business phone and a private phone when your private phone can do all your business work? Yep. A lot of accountants will say, well, it's a risk, isn't there? It's a risk of using your personal device because you're accessing sensitive data. Yep. But don't forget, earlier on we mentioned cloud. A lot of the applications and the software are now on cloud. You can't download them onto your device. You can access them, yep. You can save to them, you can interact, and you can modify all the data, but you can't extract anything out. You can use your own device. So think about how your businesses, not today, but in your strategic planning. So next time aapne strategic meeting karenge, you can say, well, I'd like to talk about bring your own device, and your chief executive will say, what are you talking about, bring your own device? And then you can talk about the savings, the potential in savings. Yeah. So bring your own device, bring your own anything. So if you see the abbreviations, BYOD, that stands for bring your own device. Yeah. So it's a very common term being used now. Or if you use BYOX, that stands for bring your own anything. Create and enforce appropriate cost data process controls. Identify the services and processes that work best on the move. So what can you do on the move, and what can you do at the workplace? Yeah. So think about, what you can do in terms of that. I tell you, I read a recent study that now, ever since the invention of smartphones, how many extra years do you think we're working as a result of that? So if our working lives from the age of 25 to the age of 55, yep, that's 30 years. Right? Add on another 10 years, 40 years. So say our working lives were 40 years before the invention of smartphones. Yep. How many extra years do you think you're now working with smartphones and personal digital devices? How many of you answer your phone at home, official calls? How many of you read your work emails at home? How many of you reply to your work emails at home? So the study has revealed that you're working now an extra 10 years, yeah, for the same pay. Yeah? So you're working an extra 10 years for the same salary. Yeah? So that's the, the return businesses are getting for you. Every time I use my BlackBerry at home, yeah, when I'm watching television, I'm not getting paid for that. My salary is based upon what I signed with ACCA 18 years ago. 18 years ago, I didn't have this. I worked 9 to 5, and that was it. When I went home, I put my feet up. Right? I started watching, a Pakistani drama. But now, I'm working constantly, so I'm working an extra 10 years as a result of that. Some jurisdictions are now putting in legislation to stop this. Volkswagen in Germany has said, you can't do it, it's illegal. Right? The law in Germany now is saying it's illegal for you to ask your employees to answer emails and be online after 5 p.m. Yeah? So what? That's Germany, they're advanced, whatever. But think about this. Yeah? These are things for you to think about and begin to explore. So those are the imperatives for the profession. Right? I'm conscious of Maghrib. Anybody wants to pray, don't let me stop you. I will continue, right? Unless somebody really feels that I ought to stop, but I will continue. Right. Big data, I've already mentioned this. Big data is about the Internet of everything. So think about this, 90% of the world's data has been created in the past 2 years. Okay? 90% of the data that we have today has been created in the last 2 years. Yeah? Before that, whenever data was being recorded, we're almost equaling that. It's huge. Yeah? But then the challenge for accountants is, well, so what? Yeah? What does that mean to us? What can I possibly do with all that data? Yeah? I ask the same question. I say the ACCA is constantly looking at data from social media. How are our members behaving on social media? Yep. What are you looking at when you go onto Facebook? What are you looking at when you go onto Google? Yep. Can I look at your spending habits? Can I look at your buying habits? Can I look at your reading habits? Yep. Where are you going on holiday? What airline are you using? Yep. What food are you buying? All that data is now being accumulated. Yeah? Some of it's exhaust data. So it's not from internally from your organizations, but it's coming out of other data sources. Yep. But then now the accountant, as a finance partner, has to think about how can he use that data to provide analytics to the leadership to grow the value of the business. Yep. So how can I increase sales? If I know all this different sort of metrics on consumers, how can I use that? So that's the way you need to think. And it could be about future sales, future products, future business lines. You need to provide that information to the leadership. Who would like me to take a break to answer questions? Yep. Put your hands up if you want me to take a break. I'll put my hand up as well. Good. So let's take a 15-minute break. I can answer questions online. Right? Those of you who want to go and say your prayers, you can, and we'll come back here at another 20 minutes then. Yes? Is that okay, Hassan? Okay.
Now they've captured a very huge market share, and they're also now making laptops and PCs with their own OS, like Microsoft's Windows tablets. So whether any auditing and ERP applications will be made in these non-Windows OS devices?
I mean, it's a very technical question.
I mean, what he's trying to say is, are there going to be any ERP-related softwares available on mobile phones for Android, for iOS?
I don't know, to be honest with you. It's such a technical question.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. But again, it's an area which is of interest to us.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
So, you know, the important thing is that as a community of professional accountants, we should know where that can be sourced.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And we will make an attempt to find that information so that we can share it with.
So the answer is yes. I mean, probably there's nothing impossible in the world of technology. So this is bound to happen.
Like I said in the earlier slide, if I went back to slide number.
Sorry. Just.
So I went back to this slide. As you can see, number 3 is that everything is up for grab. Yep. So, you know, there's every opportunity for software developers, for app developers to fill the gap. You know, so everything is up for grab. It's always related to consumer and business behavior as well.
There's a question by Muhammad Naeem. And the question is, how can we effectively use this technology as professional accountants?
But like I said, there were 10 technological trends. Yep. It's not necessarily that the profession or the business that this member works in is going to be impacted by that. So the member, whichever business they're operating in, they need to understand which technological trend is going to most impact their business. So if they're working in selling goods and services to consumers, i.e. customers and not businesses, then they need to be aware of customer behavior. Now, a lot of customer behavior nowadays is, like we said earlier on, is driven by their personal digital devices and how they interact, how they're doing their online shopping, what things they're looking at. So a lot of the consumerism is to be found on digital devices. So that's where you know, accountants can play a role in that they need to look at the metadata of consumers and consumer behavior, and then try to link that with the internal data they have on product price, on product attributes, on margins, and see how they can best get their return by looking at the analytics of connecting consumer behavior with orthodox finance functional data.
There is another question from Mr. Javed Islam. He asks, how much far in terms of years into the future this report has taken into account? And has this research also taken into account the future technologies like humanoids, human embedded chips, etc. into consideration?
Right, and this is a question from?
Mr. Javed Islam.
Okay. Well, if I look into my crystal ball for a second, right, and I have one right here, by the way, right, and my crystal ball is this particular slide that goes back. If I can go back to the Gartner hype curve, yep. Can I go back to the Gartner hype curve? Because that's so that's my crystal ball, that Gartner hype curve. Okay? And if we look at what this individual was asking about, was really, you know, robots and that sort of thing, and you look at it over here, and you try and find, you know, into mobile robots, yeah? Volumetric and holographic displays, you know, which is human augmentation, you know, humanoids and stuff, yeah? So that's really here at the start of the technology trigger, you know, whereas some people may have expectations here for other things, but really it's at the very start of the technology trigger. We have to really wait for these things here, these sort of revolutionary, you know, science fiction-like things to reach over here, which is the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. Yep. Over here we've got the things that we've, you know, very familiar with at the moment. So I hope that answers his question.
There's some comments also. All right. Javed Islam also says that yes, the answer to the Android system is partially yes, since every web-based ERP can be accessed on Android, Linux, Ubuntu, etc. Amir Afzal Jasani says the answer to the question is that the ERPs are now web-based. The hosting is on clouds, so we should be seeing an ERP on mobiles pretty soon.
Well, that's
for
great,
the next
because,
3 to 5 years.
Yeah, because you know, Mr. Jasani is working in this area, so that's great. That's how I want members to be able to share knowledge across the forum like this, so those working in technology can immediately say to the rest of us, well, this is where we're at today.
Yeah. Okay. There are some CPD-related questions, but those we could take afterwards.
Okay.
I think that's all for now. Yes, these are the questions for now.
Okay. So we'll assemble again in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, we'll assemble again in about 10 minutes.
So even those viewing remotely at home,
they are taking a break.
You can take a 10-minute break.
They are taking a break.
Okay. Always try and identify where you are today, yep, and the knowledge and skills you have today. Where do you want to be in a year's time, or 2 years' time, 3 years, and look at the skills gap that you need to fill in order to get to where you want, and then undertake the training that fills that gap. Yep. Never do training for the sake of it. Yep. Always try and identify a training need. Can you give me back the control? Right, so welcome back. So I'm just what I'm going to do very quickly now is go through the remainder slides. I'm also going to miss out a lot of slides because I'm told that we're now approaching dinner time, but we don't have dinner, we have IT. Right? So I've been asked by my team members to speed things up. Right? So big data. So it's still very early days. Accountants are already sort of preparing. In a recent survey, we identified technology skills expected to find useful during the next decade. This included data extraction tools for business mining purposes, intelligence. 72% of those members we surveyed said that knowledge of data extraction tools in the mining of business intelligence was important to them, 72%. So if you're looking at your own technology development needs, think about the usage of tools that will allow you to drill into data in organizations, both internal and external, and extract that. I'm sure there are many courses available and many tools available that allow you to do that. Google Analytics is one, and there's analytics for Facebook and others as well that you can use. There's other research that indicates 80% of enterprises in the developed world are already investing at least some part of their budget in big data, and the role of big data is expected to increase over the next 5 years. Global revenues are predicted to reach 12.4 billion in 2013, with a compound annual growth rate of 21.1% for big data services and 53.4% for big data storage. Now, in terms of revenue streams, those of you in public practice and even those of you in learning providers, think about how you can diversify your current businesses to provide that analytical expertise to other businesses. Yeah? So those of you who are in orthodox delivery of study schools and study courses for ACCA, ICAP, CIMA, think about how you can exploit big data to provide services to other clients as well. Yeah? You've already got the intellectual capacity, right? You've already got the emotional capacity, you're already accountants who are familiar with technology and data, right? So think about how your single product or single service driven organization can diversify as well. Yeah? And then you need to have those serious conversations with the owners of the business. Yeah? Because the owners are only going to invest if they see a financial return from the things you say to the things you want to do. Yeah? So, again, work as teams to identify how you can best do that. So there will be many challenges for the profession. There will be challenges such as a need for high quality data, security, privacy, legal issues. But big data could become a very big opportunity for many accountants. So you need to explore new ways to manage analyze and extract value from big data, ensure that data protection legislation is followed, apply the professionals' analytical and critical skills, use this broader business perspective to inform and identify the questions big data can most usefully answer, and monitor the specialist software and systems that are emerging and learn how to exploit them. I'm not going to go a great deal on robotics and androids. I think Pakistan still needs to make a huge leap in order to exploit this. But you can see there, that's a glimpse of a television quiz show of two humans versus Watson, who's an IBM computer, in terms of winning money for answering quiz questions. You can see that the knowledge that the computer had in this real-life picture meant that the computer was able to win $1 million because of the knowledge the computer had accumulated, compared to 300,000 that poor old Ken was making and only 200,000 that Brad was making. So again, machines are going to become more intellectual, machines are going to become more intuitive, and they're going to start doing a lot of our routine tasks for us, and perhaps make our lives easier, which means, like I said before, we have to look at other things. We have to look at value addition, we have to look at partnering, we have to work across functions and not only remain within the finance function. So again, that's an illustration of the adoption of artificial intelligence, with 24% of those surveyed believe that it will have an impact on them within the next 2 years. Yep. With the black line, 15% think that it will have an impact in the next 15 years. Yep. So I would imagine those of you, how many of you here think that artificial intelligence and robots will have an impact on your business lives within the next 2 years? Within the next 5 years? 10 years? More than 10 years? So I think 10 and more than 10 years, that seems to be an indication from you guys on how it's going to impact, our society and our business. Of a Google search to see, well, what is cybersecurity in Pakistan, what are the cybersecurity laws. There's a cyber crime bill that's coming out. It's being debated in Parliament as we speak. Yeah. This is mainly the government acting as big brother. Yeah. It's got little to do with us, but the government is beginning to act like a big brother in order to ensure that they have scrutiny over what we're doing in our social media sort of messages, etc. So what they're debating at the moment, they're saying it will be a crime to send text messages or photos to anyone's email address or phone without the recipient's consent. That's a big deal. So but the thing is, if you're sending that from your business email address or from your business device, you're even opening up your business, your employer, to potential litigation or potential risk. Yeah. Maybe we can mitigate that if we say bring your own device. Yeah. The police or FIA or any other agency won't need a warrant to search or seize or make arrests. This is being debated in Parliament. Yeah. Yeah.
It's against the law.
It's against the law. Yes, well, those are some of the arguments being presented. A lot of the industry is now lobbying Parliament so that they can dilute this. Under Section 17 and 18 of the political criticism, political expression in the form of analysis, commentary, blogs, cartoons, caricatures, criminalized, authorities will decide what is moral and what is immoral. Yep. Right? So you can't send funny cartoons about politicians, right? Especially from your work devices. Yep. Lastly, under Section 26, ISPs, restaurants, malls, hotels, offices, airports, hotels, bus stations, anywhere with internet facility will be required to hold data record for 3 months. Yep. So again, you know, as technology becomes more pervasive, governments are becoming more pervasive as well. Yep. So the long arm of the law is also trying to intervene so that they can monitor, you know, what's going on as well. Some of it is required, some of it is not, maybe infringing on human rights, like our friend there said. I had a quick search of Google and to see what cyber crimes have been committing. You've all heard of what's going on at Exact. I don't need to tell you what's going on there. That is a huge sort of technology-based company which, from the allegations, you know, is a huge fraud in the heart of that business. Yep. I won't say anything more about it, it's sub judice, but you know that that has huge ramifications. It could have ramifications for your business. Because if you've relied upon people who've gained an internet qualification, who've gained a degree, the HR functions within your organizations will be very interested. Yeah? So businesses also have to monitor through the HR functions what courses, what development needs their employees are doing, and whether those are bona fide or not. Yep. So I did a quick search and I found things like, you know, 4 held for cybercrime in Lahore. There was a Peshawar incident as well. There was cybercrime there. There's 2 cyber criminals arrested in Bahalpur. Dera Ghazi Khan accused held 1,415 illegal SIMs or whatever. But you can go to 2 websites to find out more. In order for you to start thinking about security and risk management in your own roles, you can go to this webpage and become a part of this community, Cyber Secure Pakistan. They have a Facebook page. You can note that down. You can become part of that group and you can begin to find out how you can secure data in your organizations. And next time you have a meeting with your seniors, you can put up your hand and say, I'd like to spend a little bit of time in this meeting talking about data security. Yep. And what we can do to protect our data. There's also another Facebook page called the Pakistan Information Security Association as well. Yep. So you can note these 2 down, the Cyber Secure Pakistan Community and the Pakistan Information Security Association. So get online and discover more on how you can protect and cyber secure your businesses. Right. I can feel Noor staring at me and saying, finish. Okay. I know, but I'm going to flip through. So again, you can see that over 60% of South Asians, that's you guys, right, Pakistani members, believe that cybersecurity skills will be needed in the next decade. Yep. And certainly for us, in terms of the very ease with which hackers can access, you know, a lot of data, this is really an important area. So the imperatives, what's going to be your priority is going to be the growing threat is recognized. Yep. Imagine if a hacker got into your hospital system. Yep. Imagine if a hacker got into your hospital system and destroyed patient records. Yep. That could result in the wrong medication. That could result in death. Yep. That could then result in a big case of liability. Liability means a monetary penalty. That affects the finance function, and it affects the goodwill of the organization. That affects you guys. So please stop thinking operationally, start thinking more holistically on how you can add value. The workforce is educated, aware of existing and emerging risks. At ACCA, we've got to do an online training on cyber risk. Yep. We've got to do an online training even on health and safety, how we sit, how we use our arms, how we position our heads. Yep. Unless we do that training, we will get a warning from our line managers that you have not done this training. You guys, you can speak to your managers, you can get this training often online and often free. Yep. And you can ensure that your businesses then operate, you know, at the frontiers of cyber security. Constant monitoring, etc. Defenses are updated and necessary to mitigate and reduce risk. I know there's a lot of problems with pirated software usage in Pakistan, but I think, you know, gradually software prices are coming down, and, you know, we really need to ensure that we are operating within local laws, operating within international laws. And you, as ethical professionals, need to highlight that risk over and over again, yep, within your organizations. Remember that you are the moral compass of your organizations. Yep. Those individuals who are not members of a professional accounting body are not required to do CPD, are not required to swear every year that you will be ethical and you will conduct yourself in a professional manner. You are the moral compass of your organizations. You point the direction towards what is ethically correct or is it unethical. Yep. You have to. Those are the values you must pursue, because those values will give you not only the personal returns in life, but also give your organizations the best returns as well. So educational technologies, so that's very much 63% believe that online educational technologies will impact them in the next 2 years. Have you heard of ACCA X? ACCA X is a new online delivery mechanism for ACCA students. It's going to be free of cost, and it's going to involve, Arun, is it the first 2 papers? One of the finest tutors in the world. Imperatives for education, so take advantage of the more driven approach to education, identify the areas of accountancy most likely to be de-skilled by technology, respond to the growing focus on access to information, apply new technologies to support knowledge transfer within the profession, identify and respond to the challenges and the opportunities created by broader access to education and the profession. And for me, that's about 190 million people that we have in this country, yep, and a GDP growth rate of about 3%, yep, a hidden economy of over 3%, an undocumented economy of over 3%, which isn't even taxed. So think about the potential that if you grow more accountants, so if learning partners can scale up their work, bring more people into professional accountancy, and that can have an impact on documenting the undocumented economy. Yeah? So there's a huge shortage of trained professionals who can then play a role in documenting the economy, and growing the GDP. I won't go through this. This is about virtual reality. I think still very cutting edge for Pakistan, at least still in that high expectations area of the hype cycle. Digital service, I think you've all heard of Amazon, you've all heard of OLX, you've all heard of these online delivery mechanisms that are now transforming our spending and consumer behavior, and that is, really need to think in terms of future, the next 5 years for you in Peshawar, the next 5 years for us in Pakistan, the next 10 years, how is that going to transform the businesses that we work in? And that's what you need to bring to the table. When you talk as a group, the team in your organizations, how are you going to push the envelope so that your businesses do continue to innovate? So one of the areas that I think the profession needs to work on, and I think this is really important for us as a group as well, to work with taxonomy developers and standard setters to speed up taxonomy. Now, taxonomy is a very frequently used term in biology, in botany, as we classify plants and animals. It's less often used in accountancy. It means that we can begin to classify assets, liabilities, capital in terms of their overall classification. So you know that a cat is a mammal, but then in terms of accounting taxonomy, we know that a photocopier is a fixed asset. Cash is a current asset. So you build up a taxonomy of accountancy, and that taxonomy then has to be standardized across all sectors. So what we're looking to do is, in Pakistan, I'm trying to work with a group, identify people who can work on an XBRL taxonomy, so that we can begin to standardize IFRS, which has already been done, but also some of the unique features that we have. For example, the KSE rules, the state bank rules, the company's ordinance, they require different classifications. So I think there's a lot that ACCA members can do to build a local taxonomy. And I think that's one of my aims for 2017, is to work with you people as well, so that we can build a taxonomy for Pakistan, so that no longer will we have to submit a PDF version of company accounts to FBR, an Excel version to State Bank, or a Word document to SECP. They can all be done on XBRL, and you can compare companies across sectors because it's all one standard platform. Right? India is already doing it. India already has an XBRL jurisdiction. In the UK and in the United States, you're required to file accounts in XBRL. So that's an area where, as a community, we can work together. So I'm just going to end off now. We're going to the imperatives of social technology. These are, the normal sort of Twitter, Facebook things that we use. Can you act as an agent of change? So my presentation today, will that help you in acting as an agent of change within your own organizations? Some of you say, well, so what? Some of you say, well, look, I'm inspired to actually work with groups. I'm inspired to reach out to my seniors. I'm inspired to actually put my hand up and say, I want to bring this onto the agenda. So every time an agenda is set for a particular meeting, bring technology onto that agenda. So that's what we're expecting over the next decade. So for the accounting profession, those are, looking ahead to the next decade, data extraction, data modeling. Yep. So you want to do something innovative in a different product altogether. Can you develop a model for that? Yep. In the same way as we develop in engineering, we test a model of a tanker, or we test a model of a new prototype car before we actually go into production. Yep. Accountants are now required increasingly to perform lab modeling exercises so that we can predict whether a particular product or a particular service or a particular function is going to be a success or not. Yep. The ability to use technology to attract, develop and manage talent, better working knowledge of connectivity and IT security, and knowledge on applications to integrate. So how can you integrate across the organization that Internet of Everything that we talked about? Yep. So if you're running a public practice firm, a firm of chartered accountants, how can you integrate the work of the trainees? How can you integrate that with the work of the partners? How can you integrate that with the work of the office managers, the work with the technology staff, the work with clients? How can you integrate all of that? Yep. So I'll stop there for questions. I will take one or two questions because we're running late. But please do put your hand up if you want to ask any question, whether it's about particularly this topic or whether it's about you as an individual working in Peshawar, working in KPK, you know, anything that you would like to bring onto our radar so that we can bring some technology development courses for you. Maybe you may be fed up of Excel and worksheets. You know, perhaps you would like to say to us, well, you've talked about this, now show us how. Yeah? So maybe XBRL, if I could do a demonstration of how the taxonomy, the XBRL works. Yeah? Because you can get software, Oracle software, that already does that. Yeah? But there's still a gap in terms of Pakistani laws. Okay? So any questions, please, for me, for Haroon, for my two colleagues from Peshawar. I haven't introduced them, let them stand up. Asad, Mahmood and Shahid Khan, right? They look after the Peshawar office. So a great couple of young guys doing a lot of work. They put all this together. So if you want to ask a question, they'll come around with a mic and we can begin as a group to answer some of these questions.
Okay. Open up my company, I hired the services of a local accountant, and in 2011 the FBR have introduced a balloting system through which your company will be selected for audit. Later on I come to know that whatever he is filing to the FBR is wrong. So I said enough is enough and I'm going to do it by myself. So now I'm doing all the taxation related services by myself. Will that be counted as a CPD?
My very standard answer on this would be that anything that adds to your professional development, and as long as you can prove that, counts towards your CPD. So if for, let's say, in order to be ready to start doing this work yourself, you undertook some personal development activity, it would count towards CPD. Yeah?
Thank you.
Perhaps if you could introduce yourself so that we all know.
My name is Ahmad Iqbal and I'm an FCCA. Just 2 points.
Hold the mic very close to your mouth.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Just 2 points. Firstly, this documenting of economy. As a practicing accountant, I know the value of the economy being documented, because it means more clients and more work for accountants in practice. How is ACCA going to contribute or assist FBR or the government to get this thing done in Pakistan? Obviously, in news we hear that it should be done, it has to be done, but it doesn't seem to be getting done. So how is ACCA going to assist in that? Because it's a long-term benefit for the members. And touching on the CPD courses that ACCA could do, since I've come from UK, I wasn't aware, or I'm not aware of local tax laws or corporate reporting. In UK, they've got an organization called Companies House, where you report about your company, who the directors are, and miscellaneous information. So whether ACCA could perhaps hold some sort of a CPD event training us, rather than we approaching local firms and getting internships for various months, and also on personal tax and corporation tax side of things.
So let me answer the first question, which was around, well, what can ACCA do to contribute to documenting the economy? What can ACCA do to ensure that the FBR also works with ACCA to document the economy? Like I said earlier, we rely upon our members to be the moral compass within organizations. So whether you work in a multinational or whether you work in a small SME or a micro business, we require that you as professionals ensure that you work within the ring fence of the law. So if you're working with an employer who's violating a particular law, or not disclosing or understating their profits, overstating their costs and expenses, under-declaring their taxable profits, and you as an ACCA member have a moral and ethical duty not to promote that. You have to stick your hand up and say what you're doing is against the law. And I advise you seriously, if you advise the leadership of the company you're working with, I advise you seriously not to indulge in these practices. If they turn around and say, right, you're just an accountant, you're not the decision maker, what do you do? What do you do? Well, if I was in your position, I could either blow the whistle, I could tell the authorities, or once I've discharged my moral duty and said, as an ACCA member, I'm obliged to tell you that what you're doing is immoral and unprofessional, I could resign. Find another job. Because the only reason that you're going to be paid a premium compared to somebody who's not bound by bylaws is if you remain ethical. The minute you lose that, you lose your premium. If you have a degree, I've got nothing against MBAs, I've got nothing against masters, but they are individuals who are not bound by bylaws. You, unfortunately or fortunately, are bound by bylaws. I will tell you the story of a mercenary, a British mercenary by the name of Mad Harry. You can Google his name. His name was Mad Harry. He was a mercenary, a chartered accountant who was involved in the civil war in Angola. He was arrested whilst he was a mercenary fighting in Africa. He spent 8 years in prison. When they released him from prison, the BBC sent a reporter to interview him just as he was being released from an African prison. So this chartered accountant, well-known chartered, he just gets released from an African prison, you can imagine. Or वो बाहर निकला, और BBC reporter Mike लेके उसके पास गया. He said, Mr. Harry, what is the one thing you regret? after spending 8 years in prison. And Mr. Harry said, the one thing I regret is that when I went into prison, they took away my qualification. Yep. That he lost his membership of ICAW because he had indulged in illegal act, because he said, I'd worked so hard for those exams when I was a trainee. I couldn't imagine losing the letters after my name. Yeah. So that's a real life story. Aap Google kare, Mad Harry, Chartered Accountant, and you will find and read that story. I'll let Haroon answer the CPD one.
About CPD, Ahmed, you're very right. There is this challenge about local taxation and local law with most of our members. And therefore, you know, we've planned our calendar in a way that this time of the year is mainly around taxation. So we will begin with post-budget events, and straight after that, there'll be trainings on income tax and sales tax. We try to hold them in all cities, but wherever possible, we'll use technology. Okay. Similarly, just after this, we'll move towards corporate secretarial practices also. Right. So that is a part of the plan.
But we will not hold sessions on local practices like mukmaka and other things like that. All right, good. I'd like to end it there.
We'll just like to take a couple of questions from the online attendees.
Okay.
There is one that Muhammad Umar has asked on the CPD. If a person is working in a textile sector and he wants to switch to an airline or any other industry which is totally different to textile, and he joins some CPD events or courses for obtaining some specific knowledge of that particular industry, which will help him in obtaining a job or helping him in the interview process in that industry. Whether that CPD event or course is allowed by ACCA?
By this term allowed by ACCA, I understand that this gentleman means whether it's considered CPD. So like I said before, if there is any training, any activity, let me not use the word training, any activity that you undertake for your own professional development, it is counted as CPD, whether that be you know, some activity for a new job, whether that be, I mean, I was talking to Ahmed about this a little while ago. If you're preparing yourself for another job, for another level of job, for another sector, right? As an affiliate, affiliates are not required to submit CPD. But experience of an audit firm having become a member is just work, isn't it? If it is something that is adding to a person's professional development, only then it's CPD. If it is routine, business as usual work, then it is not CPD.
The final question, how can ACCA work with the KPK government regarding technology advancement in government organizations seeking ACCA's help? So basically, what can ACCA do for the public sector?
I think the biggest challenge facing KPK, from my reading of the press or listening to the media, is that there's a lot of funds available to do development work. Yep. So it's about optimizing the usage of those funds. It's about ensuring that those funds are used within the accounting period, or whatever the fiscal period is for the government. It's about transparency and accountability of those funds. It's about the KPIs over those funds. So it's about the audit of those funds as well. Those are areas, all those areas are areas where you as accountants can perform a role. Yep. Have I said anything there which is alien to qualified accountants. Yeah? So think about it. The public sector, what they call PFM, public financial management, is an all-embracing term of how the public sector uses donor money or uses taxes within its own financial management system. Okay? And I think that accountants, ACCA members, can play a big role, especially in KPK, as you begin to bring about more accountability and transparency over the usage of public and donor money. That's how ACCAs can play a role. Okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you. So we've got some certificates to hand out.
Yes, we've got some certificates for the ACCA members.
Okay.
So if you both can come in.